The friendos, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you to the definitive tier list for all of the Nintendo 64 games. Well, not all of them. Okay, I've lied already and I apologize for that, but we have a handful of N64 games. I believe these are the most popular ones, if I'm not mistaken. Shoutouts to StarCutter95 for actually making this tier list. So they did all the hard work for us. We're just going to talk over it and, ruin someone's opinion and someone's day by having an opinion. So yeah, we're just going to rank them. Some of them I don't know about, some of them maybe you don't know about, but I've been watching a lot of tier lists for specifically competitive Pokemon recently. I thought to myself, Newbornkilik, why not take us back to 2019 and make a tier list? Remember when those were really popular? Anyway, so we're going to start off with Mario Party 2. Okay, Mario Party 2, we're starting off strong. Mario Party 2 is S tier. I will kind of explain the criteria for what makes a game good or bad. Of course, a heavy chunk of it is opinion, but I will be remembering some gameplay stuff as well. So, why is Mario Party 2 S tier? 1, it's Mario Party, okay? Everyone loves Mario Party. If you don't love Mario Party, it means you're not good at Mario Party. I'm sorry to break it to you. Mario Party 2 was when they really refined the formula, made it great. Mario Party 2, from what I understand, in a lot of people's opinions, is the definitive Mario Party. I believe this is the one where people actually hurt their hands with one of the minigames, and if a game can cause damage to you, it's hardcore. Actually, that might be a reason for it to be an A, because it can physically harm you. But to be fair, if you were a competitive asshole, you wouldn't hurt yourself in the first place, now would you? Anyway, that's beside the point. I hurt my hands a lot on this game. But it was great. The maps are great, of course, as you might expect from Mario Party. This was before they decided to go all, oh, let's be friends, everybody. Oh, everyone's super cool with one another. And when they were, not quite as competitive as Mario Party 1, Mario Party 1 was hardcore, okay? If you remember Mario Party 1, if you lost a minigame, you lost coins, and that sucks. You're actually getting punished for being a bad player instead of just being rewarded for being a good player. But that's beside the point. Oh, and you can change costumes. That honestly could raise it a tier from A tier up to S all on its own. So that, in my opinion, is kind of what really, sets this game apart, is just that little extra bit of polish, as well as the minigames, of course, are all amazing. Some of them are just kind of rehashed from the first game, but that never really bothered me. Pokemon Stadium. Solid game. My only problem with it is that it's kind of an RNG fest. Gen 1 had a very select few amount of Pokemon that were even competitively viable. I watch a lot of Fall Swipe Gaming, so I'm kind of up to date on as far as what Gen 1 Pokemon were really, really good, and none of them were the ones that I liked, unfortunately. The balance in this game was not good. As you might expect, of course, this is the first time they tried something like this, and Pokemon in Gen 1 was kind of a mess, to be honest with you. Psychic was very strong with very few counters. Bug counters Psychic, but who cares about Bug? Bug catchers, that's who. And they're the first enemy for a reason. So, Pokemon Stadium, solid A tier in my opinion. Great game. I may even put it a little, low A just for the RNG fest. Overall, solid game. Honestly, great. I loved it. Banjo-Kazooie. God, I got a place in my heart for this game, don't I? Okay, I'm gonna have to go high A tier. Am I A or S? I don't know. Here's the problem. I love all these games, so of course they're all gonna be rated super highly, unless I just don't know them. But that's a whole thing all on its own. So what makes Banjo-Kazooie A tier? A tier is a very good game. But I can understand why people may not enjoy it. Whereas Pokemon Stadium was an RNG fest, essentially, Banjo-Kazooie was a collectathon. And that may actually turn some people off. I didn't really so much mind it. There's another entry on the list that we'll see here a little bit later that follows that exact same suit that will probably be rated lower for certain reasons which we will not get to. But the fact of the matter is, you see a Jiggy, you pick the Jiggy out. It's super simple. You collect things. And you know what? The sound design in this game, amazing. On top. Perfect. The story, it's there. But you're not playing it for the story. You're playing the game to explore this colorful, amazing world with these creative enemies in it. And honestly, solid A in my opinion. I couldn't even justify placing it lower if I tried. Cruis'n USA. Cruis'n USA is probably a B tier for me. it's a solid racing game. So there's Cruisin' USA. Actually, no, Cruisin' USA was the one that I didn't play as much. I'm gonna have to move it down to C, just because I had Cruisin' the USA and Cruisin' the World, and I far preferred Cruisin' the World. I don't actually know why, but something in my brain is saying that B is a little bit high for that. I know that C is technically the lowest tier, but none of these are bad games in my opinion, at least not that I remember, so I didn't even bother putting in a D tier. Alright, you know what, let's go ahead and we're gonna put in a D tier, I suppose. We'll go ahead and put in a D tier just because I don't really think that Cruisin' USA is worth the bottom slot. That's not like, you know, doesn't have some kind of stipulation. So we're gonna go ahead and put it in, you know, put in an extra D tier here. Man, we'll just leave it like that. Doom 64. I don't know. I actually never played Doom 64. I have very faint memories of it, but I'm really not remember it. Mario Golf. You know, it's a solid game. I don't think it's A tier though. Mario Golf is not for everybody. Mario Golf is a game, obviously, about golf. It is way more fun with other people. I guess you could make that same argument for Mario Party or Pokemon Stadium. Pokemon Stadium can be played alone, and you know you can go through all the challenges, and it's perfectly fun. Mario Golf, on the other hand, is kinda dull on its own. But you get some friends together, you can have yourselves a great time with this game. Of course, it is golf. It's golf. If you don't like golf, you're probably not going to like this game. With that said, I'm not much of a fan of golf, but I like this game. So there's a little bit something for everyone here, I suppose. Even if it's just having fun with your friends, you know what I mean? Conker's Bad Fur Day. Oh boy. Oh boy. This, my boy, this is A tier, okay? Hilarious game. You know what? If it, I'm really struggling with myself. It's either A or S tier. This game is so good. If you haven't played Conker's Bad Fur Day, do it. Seriously, do it. You will not regret it. A foul-mouthed squirrel goes around, and it's adult content. I mean, no, not like adult content, but it's M-rated content, of course. Even for today's standard, there's some pretty uncomfortable stuff. It was actually re-released on the Xbox after Microsoft acquired the IP, and it was supposed to be the uncensored version of the original game. Well, they ended up censoring it more because, yikes. What I'm saying is, this is a great game. You need to check it out. I would definitely recommend it. I'm gonna go ahead and put it, it's a toss-up between Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day. Which one is better? Oh, that's a tough one. I reserve the right to move Conker's Bad Fur Day around a little bit later. Hey You Pikachu, okay. I love the idea of Hey You Pikachu, but it just doesn't work. I never got it to work. I never understood what I was doing. And part of that could just be me being a dumb kid, but I even revisited it a little bit later, not super recently, of course, and he just doesn't really listen. Half the time when you give him like I don't want to say a command because he's like your friend. He's not like a do the thing. But if he pulls up a picture of an onion, he's like, "What is this?" You say, "That's an onion, my friend." He says, "Is this a pickle?" Funniest damn thing I've ever seen in my life. God damn it. Is that where we're at right now? Anyway, so I guess this could go in bad for system, but I'm not sure that it would really be that good of a game, even if the tech did work. Like, your overall actual input in the game is very low, so I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in C tier. Of course, you're welcome to share your opinions in the comments below. Yours will differ from mine. They absolutely will. So, is Mario 64 on this list? Who makes a list without Mario 64 on it? Pokemon Puzzle League. I actually don't know. I hear it's a great game. So, yeah, that's all that I can really say about it. One of my friends was really, really into it. I have never actually played it myself, but it seems like a pretty solid game. So, I can't rate it fairly, so I'm going to go and put it in the don't know category. Rampage 2. I remember it being fun, but I remember it being very repetitive. I played this game only very shortly. I think I rented it once, which is really saying something about this game, because if I liked a game, I would rent it every time that I could. Like, I didn't go back to, you know, the rental place and I was like, Rampage, let's get some Rampage. You know, I remember kicking buildings and shoving buildings down and fighting each other, but I didn't have any friends to play with at the time. I was a very solitary young boy who mostly played single-player games. I know that's weird that Mario Party is at the top of the list with that said, but that's beside the point. Anyway, on to the next one. Mega Man 64. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Donkey Kong 64. Okay, well, I have a decision to make. I'm gonna have to put it into... Oh, the game is so huge, though. Okay. It's either... I would say this is probably high A. Okay. Donkey Kong 64 is a high A for... one of the main reasons that I love and dislike Donkey Kong 64... this game would easily be A tier if you could switch Kongs on the fly, which there actually is a mod that you could do, but we're rating the original 64 versions as we remember them as we were younger, so that doesn't really count here. It's very stressful when you go to an area and, you know, you say you find... Okay, so say like you're Donkey Kong and you're going to, you know, through this area, you're exploring the area as Donkey Kong. Oh, you see some red bananas. Okay, well now I gotta go all the way back and grab Diddy to do this red area, and sometimes they were pretty smart about it. You know, they did like, okay, this is a designated, you know, red area for Diddy or a purple area for Tiny, and sometimes that worked out pretty well. Other times, I just remember it being very frustrating, and, you know, especially in a game where you do have to collect things. It's not like in Banjo-Kazooie, you basically just have to collect, you know, jiggies and note pieces. There's a lot of things to collect in this game. A lot of things to collect. And if you don't systematically go through every single level, you will miss them. And you will forget about them. So, you know, say you don't fully complete the first level and you move on to the second and third and fourth level and you're like, oh, actually, you know, I do need these blueprints. Because at the end of the game, you need blueprints to essentially slow down the cannon on the last level, I think. There's a timer on the last level, which, interesting idea, but if you didn't collect enough blueprints, you're not going to have enough time to get through the level. With that said, it's still an amazing game, and that is why I believe it is a high B, maybe even low A. I'm going to go ahead and put it in high B, just for the reasons that I've given, I suppose. Love the game still. Perfect Dark. I know I played it, and I know I liked it. I don't remember it being particularly good for the system. So the Nintendo 64 is awful for first-person shooters. You're going to come to the realization of that a little bit later. The control scheme just doesn't work. Okay, it's awkward, it's cumbersome. I would say Perfect Dark is a great game. It was actually remade on the Xbox 360, I believe, and I remember that game being very solid. The story, great. I have great memories of playing this game, but it's just so clunky with that awful Nintendo 64 controller, which I love because I have to, because I'm nostalgic for it, but just rough game overall. Banjo-Tooie, my bad. Amazing game. Great game. I will admit I never actually played all the way through it. What I did play actually was quite wonderful, though. It took a lot of things from Banjo-Kazooie and just kind of added more to it, you know? You can play as other characters, which is nice and refreshing for gameplay reasons. Of course, you still have your transformations and everything, which are fun as well. Overall, solid game. I would rank it probably right next to Banjo-Kazooie, or maybe even a little bit above, just because I haven't completed it and I don't really have a great place to put it. But I do believe that it is in the same area as Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Tooie is a wonderful game as well. Diddy Kong Racing. Okay. So, I feel like this is a B tier. I do remember playing this game. This was actually one of my go-to racing games. I had Cruis'n the World and Diddy Kong Racing, and of those, Cruis'n the World, Cruis'n USA, and Diddy Kong Racing. Of those two games, or of those three games, I suppose, Diddy Kong Racing was definitely my favorite. I've actually went back and played it again recently, and it's really hard. Like, there is a challenge factor to the quote-unquote campaign of this. I've never fully completed this game. The boss races are pretty tough, but manageable, once you kind of get used to them, and my adult brain was not terribly bad at, completing those. It's when you get to the coin races where you have to collect all 10 coins and then finish in first place, the game really, really ramps up the difficulty at that time, because some of these coins are in places you would never go, trying to win a race. They're like off the track in some instances, and that is, it's just really rough. I wouldn't necessarily say that the challenge factor is bad. I'm actually going to rate this above Mario Golf, because I do think it's better. I did enjoy Donkey Kong 64 more, but that's partially just because I'm not really a racing game kind of person. So, challenging game. Maybe I'll go back and try to complete it sometimes. There's very different kinds of vehicles. There's a car, a hovercraft, and a plane. All of which, obviously control very differently and have different strengths and whatnot. I remember the plane being hands down the best. There's no reason to use any other vehicle if you have access to the plane, but you still have the option. And I may be, incorrect with some of the stats, like, oh, this one might be a little bit better, but I just use the plane, honestly. Fly through the air, just fly above your opponents, and you got a leg up on the competition. Duke Nukem 64. I actually never played this game, so I can't give it a solid rating, but I can say that it's probably also not great for the system, the system wasn't great for it, I suppose, in the same vein as Perfect Dark. Just clunky controls, you don't have the other stick to actually aim. I don't remember if this game had sticky aim. Perfect Dark kind of had sticky aim, if I remember correctly, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Moving on to Kirby 64. I love this game. This is a very easy game, however. I would probably rate this I'm going to go ahead and rate it a low B or high C. Jeez, this is a tough one. I'm going to go ahead and rate it a very low B. And so the reason for this is there's a lot of backtracking, which isn't necessarily bad. Overall, it is a 2D platformer. Like I said, 2D side-scrolling platformer. It's very easy, and it does introduce one of my favorite mechanics that Kirby's ever had in the ability to mix his copy abilities. So say you get, like a sword and a fire enemy, you could have a fire sword. Really cool idea. There's so many, actually, I'm actually really talking myself up about this game now that I'm thinking about it. So there are so many different combinations, which is a great strength for the game, but it's also kind of a weakness in a way as well, because there are certain shards that you have to collect, and you're expected to get at least one shard in each level, but there are, I believe, 3 shards in each level, if I'm not mistaken, and a 3 to 4 or something. There's some amount of shards each level, and some of the ways that you get them are very kind of random, so you just have to have a certain combination of abilities to unlock these shards, like you break like the cap off of something and get underground or something, or maybe one of them you have to break a wall, and usually they're pretty good about showing you with color combinations what you actually need to do to get through the wall or under the floor or whatever. Sometimes it's not so obvious, and you wouldn't know that until you got there, unless you just happen to have that combination. But with that said, there are certain combinations that are just hands down better. 100% absolutely better, and there's no reason not to use them. They just are so powerful. Of course, when you have as many abilities as Kirby 64 has, then that is going to happen. There are going to be some better and some a little bit worse, but overall, I would say it's good. My complaints with the game are that there's a lot of replaying, I have to go back and grab this one ability and then try to get through, and then you just have to hope you have the right ability, because you, again, even though it's color-coded, some of them may look kind of similar and you may still not have the right ability, so you have to play through the level yet again just to get there. So, anyway, pretty decent, solid B tier in my opinion for the things that it did right, and my qualms overall are pretty low on that one. The multiplayer was pretty fun, albeit very simplistic. There's a game where you shoot lines of color out and it drops tiles out from underneath other people. That would make a perfect Mario Party game. Great 4-player game. I would recommend playing it. I remember we played that game alone for, God, it must have been like 2.5 hours. It was so much fun with 4 friends. Mario Party. The original Mario Party. Very solid. High A tier. I probably wouldn't... I don't know, you know? It's somewhere in here. I'm not as nostalgic for it. But I do acknowledge that it is a wonderful game. It's kind of off-putting because it's very easy to just stay in the lead. Like, if you're the better player, you're just going to win, which in a lot of people's opinions is a good thing. You know, the best player should win out of most games. And one of the main complaints that I see about Mario Party are the RNG elements in it, but in my opinion, that just adds to the chaos, you know? In Mario Party 1, if you're not aware, if you win a minigame, you gain coins. If you lose a minigame, certain types of minigames, especially versus minigames, I do believe, you actually lose 5 coins. So, by losing, the economy is like kind of shifted in a really weird way, so that 3 people could lose 15 coins total while one person gains, I don't remember if they get 10 or 15, but either way, that's a really big gap off of just, you know, maybe it's even a close game. Maybe second place was, you know, doing really well, first place just happened to be a little bit better, and they're punished so, like, the gap is widened by so much just for that one slip up. And again, overall, just less experience with the game as well, so a solid A still. Glover, I don't really care for this game. I would say it's more of a game than Hey You Pikachu. I don't remember much about it, but I remember it was relatively fun. You know, you gotta think, if C tier's still not bad, right? Like, it definitely doesn't belong in D tier. I remember it being very frustrating a lot of the time, which, you know, of course could just be younger me being younger me, and I can, you know, definitely admit that. But again, I don't have much to go off of. I'm gonna go and slap it in C tier. I always loved making the ball a gem and yeeting it and just watching it shatter and failing the mission. I don't really know why that was so funny to me, but it was. 007 GoldenEye. This is the reason I made this tier labeled bad for the system. Or it's bad because of the system. Let me rephrase that. 007 itself, not a bad game. Actually, pretty decent game. There are mod packs that you can actually run it on emulators to use it with keyboard and mouse, or even a better controller than a Nintendo 64 controller. Run it a smooth 60 FPS, and it's great. Great game. Okay? That is wonderful. However, you gotta be honest. When you're playing it on the Nintendo 64, you know, you're getting it's a bit laggy, which I can overlook. It's a Nintendo 64. That's fine. Lag is kind of to be expected. What is really rough is the fact that when you want to shoot something, you have to stop and open up this little aiming thing and then shoot. You know, all the while you're still taking fire. Like, enemies don't be like, oh, well, stop shooting him, he's aiming, you know, that's only fair. They don't do that, you know, they're still pelting you with bullets the entire time, and that's just a mess. Not to mention the one thing, well, not the one thing, but one of the main things this game is praised for is its multiplayer, but there's a character in there that, again, the problem is made much worse by the fact that you have to stop and aim. He's shorter than everybody else. He's like, okay, so if the normal person's here, like my height, he comes up to like my stomach. You cannot shoot him. And of course, and they have, was this the one that they had the disarm in? I think that might have been Perfect Dark, where you could disarm people and they drop their gun. Which, oh my god. On PC, not that big of a deal. You just whip down, you know, pick it back up. Even on controller, it's not a horrible thing. But for this console, that's broken. Okay? You disarm someone, boom. That's just it. They just don't get to play the game because you're shooting them with bullets. So anyway, I don't remember if that's 007 or Perfect Dark. Either way, that was a little bit of a side tangent. Let's get back to it. Harvest Moon 64. I do not know. I actually am not sure. Mario Party 3. I'm going to go ahead and put this a little bit below Mario Party 1. God, it's so tough. I have more exposure with it. The game modes were a bit more varied. They had this dual mode that you could play with just 2 players. So say you had like a younger brother or an older brother, or some sibling, and you just wanted to duel each other. There was that little bit of extra gameplay. So I do think that it is above Mario Party, as well as being, the games tend to stay a little bit closer as well. because the economy is not being shifted so drastically in one turn. Mario Tennis is another example of a game that it's a sports game, and you'll either love it or you'll hate it. I rather enjoyed it. I usually played it on my own. The cups are rather difficult, and I think you'll find some rather good challenge, unless you can find some cheese. If you find cheese, then obviously it's going to be super simple, but if you can't manage to find any cheese to beat some of these, cups and some of these tournaments, it's rather difficult. Not to mention, the multiplayer, of course, is great. You can have an AI. You can do singles and doubles and have an AI that'll help you out. But overall, solid game. I wouldn't say that it's better than Donkey Kong 64. It's a sports game. I remember having fun with it. I'm probably gonna say that I don't remember if I played Donkey Kong 64 or Mario Tennis more. Anyway, Bomberman Hero. Now, I don't remember if I played Bomberman or Bomberman 64. I'm going to assume that I played Bomberman 64, and that one's coming up a little bit. I don't think I ever played Bomberman Hero, but I think they were somewhat similar, so I'm going to go and put this in the don't know category. Mickey Mouse Speedway, don't know. Mischief Maker, don't know. Bomberman 64. So Bomberman 64, again, this is going to suffer from I don't really know syndrome. I remember it being fun. I remember having a lot of fun. I believe there were a handful of spots where you could soft lock, if I'm not mistaken. My brain says that I soft locked at a certain point, but of course, I was a kid, so I could be incorrect. Either way, it's a high C. It's definitely a game. I enjoyed it more than Cruising in the USA or Cruising the World or whichever one that I was thinking of at the time. Great game. I enjoyed it. Again, I do want to emphasize, C tier here is a good game. C tier is still good. D is basically anything that I think is not good. And I don't think there's anything on this list that if I knew it, I enjoyed it, basically. The closest one, again, would probably be Rampage 2, but that's just because it's super repetitive in my experience. And again, I didn't play it super long, so maybe I just didn't really get it. But Bomberman 64, fun game, varied locations. It's got a really cool speedrun, actually. The speedrun is fun. I would recommend checking out the speedrun. Sesame Street, never played it, don't know. Mario Kart 64. Alright, so I would probably... This is a tough one, huh? And it's just a solid racing game, huh? I would probably put Mario Kart 64 in the A tier, mostly because I know it's good. I know the tracks are good. I know the controls were pretty good, if I'm not mistaken. It was more complex than Diddy Kong Racing, which I think really lended itself to more of a party-style game, which, if you're playing this, of course, you really want 4 players playing split screen, as you would with Diddy Kong Racing, but the amount of power-ups were just more, there was more things to do. I don't remember if there were more tracks. I'm pretty sure there were more tracks than in Diddy Kong Racing, so just in that ride alone, I do believe it would deserve to be higher. But again, my experience with this game is relatively lacking, so I don't really want to place it any higher than low A, high B, and that's just me trying to be fair to it, right? So this could easily be low B, but I know that it's good. Paper Mario. Oh boy. Okay, so... God, Paper Mario is so good. Is it S or A tier? Well, that's the question. I would say, honestly, we're getting into some of the really, really good games. I love Paper Mario. I'm gonna have to go and put it in S tier, honestly. And I played this game so much when I was a kid. This is and probably a lot of yours as well, this is my first experience, my first foray, if you will, into RPGs. So this is actually what I hold, most RPGs, at least in this similar style, to this day. How does it compare to Paper Mario? Obviously, a lot of them are more complicated and stuff. South Park: The Stick of Truth, very similar to this game. Wonderful game, okay? Love South Park and The Stick of Truth. Love Paper Mario. Great story. I was a kid. I didn't even care about the story, and I still enjoyed it. Right? Like, that's the mark of a good story. And of course, it's Mario. It was a very stylized thing, very neat, and overall, solid, colorful, wonderful experience. I can't remember. I remember there were a couple times I might have gotten stuck just because I wasn't paying attention. But overall, great locations, great story, great characters. I love the Boo. What's her name? Her name is Bo. Love Bo. Bo was by far my favorite companion. Anyway, moving on to the next one, we have Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap is kind of in the same vein as Hey You Pikachu, in the fact that it's a game by definition, but it's more of a game than Hey You Pikachu, and I remember enjoying it a lot more. I have very fond memories of Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap was one of those games that was made to be played multiple times as well. I would probably say I enjoyed it. That's a solid B tier. I feel like this one might actually make people mad. Putting it in B tier. Remember, B tier is still damn good. Okay, B tier is still A-okay. So the reasons I'm putting it in B tier is, while it may not necessarily be like a game, like an action game or something, it's still a really great experience, right? It is a solid experience. I might even probably put it over Mario Tennis. Alright, so I think that's a little more fair. Does it deserve to be an A? Perhaps. Is that nostalgia talking? Perhaps. So again, I am trying to account for nostalgia as well. Pokemon Snap is, you're in a cart and you're just taking pictures of Pokemon. Once you learn how to manipulate the system, it's kind of a bummer because you can really, you can take some very good pictures, and Professor Oak is like, this is garbage. I like this picture where they're certainly, right in the frame. I would love to see this remade with like a professional photographer in mind. You could actually use this to train people to take really cool and really good looking photos, and professional looking photos, to whereas instead of just it's directly in the frame and it's not cut off at all. Wow, that is a good picture. So I think that, kind of the shallowness of, once you learn what they're looking for, basically, kind of hinders it for me. But again, solid game. B tier is damn good. Pokemon Stadium 2. Pokemon Stadium 2, I don't have as much experience with it, honestly. I'm gonna go ahead and put it a little bit below Pokemon Stadium just because I don't know. I remember it's very similar, but I don't really remember how the new Pokemon kind of fit in with everything. So I think in the same area as Pokemon Stadium is probably fair. I do remember that the minigames were, again, solid, just as they were on the first one. So I think A tier is A-okay. Star Fox 64. Oh boy. Yikes. This one's gonna be rough to place. So I think I'm gonna move this around a little bit too. I love Conker's Bad Fur Day so much. It's really hard for me to express. It may very well be S tier. No, it's not S tier. It's not S tier, okay? That's nostalgia. Watch out. So Star Fox. I want to put Star Fox in A tier. Put a Star Fox in A tier because it's just a solid game. It's on-rail shooter done right. There's no... the controls are... I think the controls were pretty good, if I'm not mistaken. The atmosphere of the levels was appropriate. You had different endings depending on which way you went, if I'm not mistaken. And bear in mind, a lot of this is off memory, so I could be mistaken as well. So please do feel free to, correct me in the comments politely in the comments if I do say something incorrect or you have a differing opinion. And hey, maybe I'll even revisit these games and, find a new love for them. Star Fox, solid game. Different paths. It's birthed a lot of memes. And I think that the memeage of a game does not necessarily, directly relate to how good a game is, but this is the first time that Star Fox was kind of fully realized. They had the Super Nintendo version. Super Nintendo version is kind of a mess. It's really hard to see what's going on. 64 really brought that to life. It really brought Star Fox to life. And in my opinion, still one of the better Star Fox games. I loved it. I don't think I'm, shaking the wasp's nest at all on that, really. Of course, I like all the Star Fox games. I thought they all had a place. Ocarina of Time, S tier. Don't even shut up. No. Okay. Ocarina of Time. Much like Mario 64, that would also be S tier word on this list. It's just good. Okay? This is an adventure. This was my first taste of really sitting down and going through an area, going through a story, going through this epic tale. Ocarina of Time, yeah, we're playing randomizers and stuff of it now, but back in the day, this game was huge. This game was massive. There's so much to do, and you could see your character getting stronger. Like, you know, you got the silver gauntlets, and you're like, wow, I'm more powerful now. Or, you know, you get tons of different upgrades. The mini games were great, and honestly, my only problem with this game is the bow control. I think Z targeting is amazing. Without Z targeting, this would be probably... Z targeting is huge for this game. And it also is the first game I believe that really brought that to the forefront. So that would be the formula, Z targeting, that we would use for the rest of the Zelda games. And any kind of combat game that you think of, you know, today, there's some kind of, maybe not exactly Z targeting, but there's probably some way to lock on to an enemy and really, you know, focus on them in a one-on-one duel, you know, scenario. So, amazing game, of course. Soundtrack slaps. You know, you can't beat Ocarina of Time. Wave Race, I just don't know. Jet Force Gemini, I believe this is another case of bad because of the system. So again, it's a shooter game, and I remember it being pretty cool. I remember having some fun with it when I did play it. I was also a very cowardly kid, so I didn't really explore. I usually just like explored around the areas and tried not to fight enemies because I was bad at it. This is probably why I have issues with, you know, like shooter games and stuff, and like anxiety. Oh my god, what if they shoot me back? It's because the N64 controls were so crippled as far as first-person shooters, and like Turok 2, another game that would be bad because of the system. Rage Wars, another game bad because of the system. So if those two were on this list, boom, they'd be right there. Okay? But Mario 64 is on this list. Oh, well, I let the cat out of the bag then, damn. So just go ahead and slap that up there. Alright. My bad. So we'll get back to Mario 64 and talk about that in just a second. So, what was I saying? Good game, marred by the system in my opinion. F-Zero X. I never played it, actually. It just wasn't in my repertoire. I hear it's great. I hear it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of love in it, you know. A lot of love for the game. Smash Bros. That's a solid A, alright? I'm going to go ahead and put it just above Star Fox 64. It's a party game in essence. It's so much more fun when you're playing with multiple people, whereas, you know, games like Conker's Bad Fur Day are, you know, essentially single player. You can have fun with them single player or multiplayer. If this were Melee, I would probably put it above these other games, but the fact of the matter is, it's not. Smash 64, if you actually look up footage of like Smash 64 tournaments these days, it's a very interesting metagame. It's a very combo-heavy metagame, and once you get hit, that's basically just stock. Balance is not good in this game. There are characters that are just hands down better than the rest. But with that said, game's not bad, okay? Obviously, it's in mid-A, only beaten out by Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Of course, I'm going to enjoy those. I bumped the desk. Of course, I'm going to enjoy those games more because I was playing, you know, a solo player experience. Smash Bros. Was fun, but you can only go through classic mode and beat up level 9 CPU so many times before it just gets kind of boring. We're going to talk about Mario 64. So Mario 64, S-tier game, obviously, right next to Ocarina of Time. There's only going to be a handful of games up in this area, and I think you're probably going to see one more game that's going to be in this area as well. Mario 64, good game. Again, revitalize the 3D market, or really kind of, I guess not revitalize, but, you know, set the pace for the 3D market as far as platformers. And it did it right. You know, you had games like Bubsy 3D, which are just universally marred because of their poor choices, essentially. You know, the tank controls, which on paper makes sense, but as far as a game like this, Mario 64 just did it better. It had so many acrobatic feats, and even to this day, people still love watching this game and love modding this game. And I think that really does go to show, you know, what... You know what? I'm actually going to move this above Ocarina of Time. People are still modding this game. People are doing amazing things in the engine of this game. To this day. This game was out a decade ago. That's insane. Okay, that is crazy. Okay, on to Majora's Mask. I would say just below Ocarina of Time. Solid game. Loved it. I never had as many problems with the day-night cycle as everyone else. In fact, I really liked the day-night cycle. The only time it ever got really frustrating, in my opinion, was, say you were going through a dungeon or something, and, you have to make that difficult decision. Do you go back in time or try to defeat the boss just in time? I always kind of thought ahead about that. Whenever I were to start a dungeon, I would reset time no matter what, and then slow it down. And that seemed to work out pretty well for me. Usually you can defeat a dungeon, even if you're not really sure what you're going on, by about the daybreak of the third day. Leaving me plenty of time, of course. And if you talk around, which you should be doing in the first place, now you can find the Song of Slowing Time, which really helps things out, as well as the Song of Double Time, which allows you to move forward half a day. So I think a lot of people's complaints about this game have to do with the time system, if I'm not mistaken. And once you know those mechanics and kind of have those rules set for yourself, don't start a dungeon on day 3. That's obvious. But anyway, Yoshi's Story. I remember having a lot of fun with this game. God, this is such a good game. I would probably put Yoshi's Story at a solid, a little simple. I think it's supposed Pokemon Snap. I'd probably go ahead and put Yoshi's Story high, mid, B tier. It's a very fun game. I love the extra collectible Yoshis that you could get. You could get a black and a white Yoshi, and they were super cool. I wouldn't really say that there's a story necessarily. You're just trying to get to the end. That's about it. Now, how you get there, you collect fruit. So it is in essence, it's a collectathon, but once you collect enough fruit, the level just ends. That can be good and bad, because there are certain collectibles in the level that maybe you want to collect. I don't remember exactly what you ended up collecting in this game. But anyway, so that could actually kind of work against you if you're trying to collect everything. And if you don't get them all by the end of the level, you restart the level and go back through again and just kind of pick up what you missed, if I'm not mistaken. That can be a little frustrating, but overall, still solid game. I do definitely enjoy it, of course. And I believe that is it. So here we have it. The Newbornkilik approved tier list for the Nintendo 64 game library. Of course, we're missing some, and shoutouts yet again to StarCutter95 for making this tier list for us. It was a lot of fun. I might make 1 or 2 more. This is actually a lot of fun to make. Let me know if you think that is something worth doing necessarily, and if I should maybe edit these up a little bit more, or if I should keep them a little bit more, chill. Kind of just roll with them. Anyway, thank you so much. Leave a like if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe if you happen to be new, because, spoiler alerts, I'm still making awesome content. I think it's awesome. You may not. Anyway, I'm Newbornkilik, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.